My name is Nora Rodriguez, and I never thought I'd be the villain in my family's story, but that's exactly what they made me out to be for 33 years of my life, the youngest of three children. I was raised in a middle-class Latino-American household in Denver, where appearances meant everything and family loyalty was preached but never practiced, at least not toward me. The rain fell in a gentle mist as I stood outside the Willowbrook estate that fateful evening, my heart pounding against my ribcage. 6 months ago, my mother's words had been crystal clear. Don't even think about showing up to Vanessa's wedding. Yet here I was, clutching a small USB drive in my trembling hand, about to change the course of my family's history forever. The venue manager approached me, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez? Everything is ready." I nodded, unable to find my voice. In a few minutes, I would either reclaim my dignity or burn the last bridge connecting me to my blood relatives. The funny thing about bridges, though, sometimes they need to burn for something better to be built in their place. Let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up as Nora Rodriguez meant living in the shadow of my older sister, Vanessa, 2 years my senior. Vanessa was everything I wasn't in my parents' eyes. Outgoing, conventionally beautiful, and ambitious in ways they understood. While I buried myself in books and dreamed of building something meaningful, Vanessa chased popularity and validation through social media followers. Our mother, Carla Rodriguez, orchestrated the family dynamics with surgical precision. My father, Miguel, a hardworking contractor, had long ago surrendered the emotional leadership of our household to her. He wasn't a bad man, just a weak one who found it easier to enable my mother's favoritism than to challenge it. "Nora, why can't you put more effort into your appearance like your sister?" This was my mother's common refrain throughout my teenage years, usually followed by, "No wonder the boys don't notice you." What she never acknowledged was that I didn't want to be noticed for my appearance. I wanted to be valued for my mind, my work ethic, my dreams. But dreams don't photograph well for family Christmas cards, and intelligence doesn't immediately translate to the kind of success my parents could brag about at neighborhood gatherings. Despite the constant comparisons, I maintained a relationship with my family. I showed up for Sunday dinners, listened to Vanessa's endless monologues about her growing social media presence, and silently endured my mother's cutting remarks about my career choices, my apartment, my clothes, everything that made me who I was. After college, I secured a position at Pinnacle Marketing Group, a mid-sized firm in Denver. The pay was decent, the work challenging enough, and most importantly, it gave me the financial independence to start building my own life. What my family didn't know, what I deliberately kept from them, was that marketing was just my day job. At night, in the quiet of my modest apartment, as my mother loved to describe it with thinly veiled disdain, I was building something of my own. It started small, handcrafted home decor items I sold online under the name Cozy Creations. The business was born from necessity. I needed additional income to pay off student loans, but it quickly became my passion. By my 27th birthday, Cozy Creations was generating enough revenue for me to hire 2 part-time assistants. By 29, I had patented an eco-friendly packaging design that caught the attention of several national retailers. By 30, I had made my first million. And no one in my family knew. It wasn't that I planned to keep my success a secret forever. I simply learned early on that sharing good news with my family inevitably led to one of 2 outcomes. Either my achievements would be diminished. "That's nice, boss, honey. But did you hear about Vanessa's new brand deal?" Or they would be exploited. The exploitation began in earnest 3 years ago when Vanessa called me in tears. "Nora, I need your help," she sobbed. "I've got this amazing opportunity to launch my own beauty brand, but I need some startup capital. The investors want to see that I have skin in the game." "How much are you looking for?" I asked, already knowing I would help her. Despite everything, she was my sister. "Just 18,000, she said, her voice immediately steadying. "I'll pay you back with interest as soon as the first round of funding comes through." I transferred the money that same day, no contract, no payment schedule. Just a sister helping a sister. 6 months later, when I gently inquired about repayment, Vanessa looked at me as if I'd asked for one of her kidneys. "Are you serious?" she scoffed. "That was an investment in our family's future, not a loan. Mom and Dad agreed with me. We thought you understood that." I didn't push the issue. $18,000 wasn't going to break me, but the casual way they had rewritten our agreement stung far more than the financial loss. The patterns continued. At family gatherings, my mother would make pointed comments about my stagnant career, unaware that I was closing deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars between passing the mashed potatoes and deflecting questions about my non-existent love life. "Vanessa's hit 500,000 followers," my mother announced at my father's birthday dinner. "Her last sponsored post paid more than Nora makes in a month." The relatives laughed, and I smiled tightly, not bothering to correct her. What they didn't know was that I'd just signed a licensing agreement for my packaging design that would generate passive income for years to come. Then came the BBQ incident in June 2022. I arrived at my parents' home carrying a homemade artichoke dip and wearing a simple sundress that I'd chosen for comfort rather than style. "Oh, Nora," my mother sighed, looking me up and down. "You'll never be as successful or loved as Vanessa if you don't put more effort into yourself." The words hung in the air between us, around us. Conversations continued, but I felt as though I'd been slapped. It wasn't the first time she'd made such a comparison, but something about the casual cruelty of that moment crystallized everything for me. In my mother's eyes, I would always be deficient. That evening, I met Vanessa's new boyfriend, Chad Whitfield. He was exactly what you'd expect. Tall, conventionally handsome, and working in investment banking. He barely acknowledged my existence until he learned I worked in marketing. "Pinnacle, huh?" he said, swirling expensive scotch in a crystal tumbler. "Small firm, local clients mostly, right? Not exactly the big leagues." "It pays the bills," I replied with a shrug, not mentioning that my hobby business had just expanded into 3 new market segments, or that I was in early talks to provide my packaging design to a major national retailer. "Well, we all have to start somewhere," he said with the condescension of someone who had never started from anywhere but advantage. 3 months later, Vanessa announced their engagement with a professionally photographed Instagram post that garnered more likes than any of her previous content. My mother called me immediately. "Isn't it wonderful? Chad proposed at Tuscany Gardens with a 4-carat diamond. The wedding will be at the Willowbrook estate next year. They had a cancellation, and we simply had to grab the date. It's going to be the event of the season." What my mother didn't know was that I was a silent investor in Tuscany Gardens, one of 3 restaurants in which I'd placed early capital. The owner, a brilliant chef named Julia Santos, had approached me after discovering Cozy Creations and admiring my business acumen. It was the first of several strategic investments I'd made in local businesses with potential. "That's wonderful," I said, genuine happiness for my sister mixing with the familiar ache of knowing how this would play out. "When's the date? I'll make sure to keep it clear." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Well, Nora, that's actually why I'm calling. The venue has a strict capacity limit, and with Chad's business associates and Vanessa's influencer network, plus family." I closed my eyes, already knowing where this was heading. "Mom, are you saying I'm not invited to my own sister's wedding?" "Don't be dramatic. Nora, it's not that you're not invited. It's just that, well, priority has to go to people who are important to their future. You understand? People who can help them network and build their brand." In that moment, something hardened inside me. A lifetime of slights, dismissals, and emotional manipulation crystallized into a single, brilliant point of clarity. I would never be enough for them, not because of any deficiency on my part, but because they had decided long ago what my role in the family would be. I was the contrast that made Vanessa shine brighter, the reliable disappointment that made my mother feel superior, the quiet daughter who wouldn't rock the boat. "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. The official exclusion came via text on November 15, 2022. Vanessa's wedding is for family who matter. Don't embarrass us by showing up. No signature needed. I knew who it was from. The message was pure Carla Rodriguez. Cutting, dismissive, and designed to wound. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Something told me I might need it someday. Life continued. I showed up for Thanksgiving, endured Christmas, and maintained the facade of the dutiful daughter who accepted her place in the family hierarchy. All the while, Cozy Creations continued to thrive, and my investments yielded returns that exceeded even my optimistic projections. Then came December 5th, 2023, the night everything changed. My grandmother on my father's side had passed away earlier that year. Maria Rodriguez had been the one person in the family who seemed to see me for who I really was. When I visited her in the nursing home, she would hold my hand and tell me stories about her own mother, a woman who had built a successful seamstress business despite the limitations placed on women of her generation. "You have her eyes," my grandmother would tell me, "not just the color, but the way they see. You look at the world and see possibilities where others see only what is." Before she died, she had told me she was leaving me a modest inheritance, $30,000 that she had saved over decades of careful living. "For your dreams," she had whispered, "whatever they may be." The family gathered at the Fairway Club, an upscale restaurant in downtown Denver, ostensibly to discuss final wedding details. I arrived slightly late due to a meeting with a potential new supplier for Cozy Creations, apologizing as I slid into the last empty seat at the long table. "Now that everyone's finally here," my mother said with pointed emphasis, "we have some family business to discuss." What followed was not a discussion, but a proclamation. My mother announced that after careful consideration, she and my father had decided to redirect my grandmother's inheritance to Vanessa's wedding fund. "The $30,000 will cover the upgraded floral arrangements and the premium open bar package," she explained, not meeting my gaze. "It's what your grandmother would have wanted, to contribute to such a joyous family occasion." The table fell silent. Even Vanessa had the grace to look uncomfortable. Though not enough to refuse the money, Chad examined his fingernails, the ghost of a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "That money was specifically left to me," I said quietly, feeling every eye at the table on me. "Grandma told me herself." My mother waved a dismissive hand. "Your grandmother wasn't thinking clearly in her final months. Nora, besides, what would you even do with that money? Pay off credit card debt? Buy a slightly less depressing apartment? Vanessa and Chad will use it to create memories for our entire family." "Except for me," I said, "since I'm not invited to the wedding." A ripple of discomfort passed through the extended family members at the table. Clearly, not everyone had been aware of my exclusion. "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. "This isn't about you." "It never is," I replied. Standing up, my hands were trembling, but my voice remained steady. "For the record, I don't need Grandma's money. I respected her wishes because she respected me, something the rest of you have never managed to do." "Oh, please," my mother scoffed. "You've never earned a dime on your own. You're just a charity case. We've all had to support emotionally for years. At least be grateful we don't ask you to contribute financially to family events when you can barely support yourself." The words hit like physical blows, but this time, instead of absorbing them, I let them bounce off me, because in that moment, I knew this would be the last time my mother or anyone else in this family would speak to me this way. I looked around the table, taking in the faces of my relatives, some uncomfortable, some curious, some entirely uninterested in the family drama playing out before them. My father studied his plate, unwilling as always to challenge my mother. Vanessa examined her immaculate manicure, already bored with a conversation that wasn't centered on her. Without another word, I picked up my purse and walked out. In the parking lot, I sat in my Honda CR-V, watching my breath fog the windows as tears burned behind my eyes but didn't fall. For years, I had maintained the fiction of being just Nora, the underachieving daughter. The reliable disappointment, the family doormat, I had done it initially out of a desire for acceptance, then later out of habit, and finally out of a perverse curiosity about how far they would go. Now I knew. They would steal from me, lie about a dead woman's wishes, and humiliate me in front of our extended family without a second thought, all while believing I was powerless to do anything about it. But I wasn't powerless. I hadn't been for a very long time. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Sophia, who worked as a legal assistant at a local firm. "That was awful. You know they can't legally take that dollar from you, right? The will is clear. Call me." I started the car instead. I needed time to think, to plan, because this wasn't just about $30,000 that I didn't need. It was about 33 years of systematic emotional abuse, manipulation, and exploitation. It was about my identity and my dignity. It was about truth. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. For the next several hours, I methodically gathered evidence of years of mistreatment. Screenshots of text messages, emails, voice recordings from family gatherings that I had sometimes made to remind myself I wasn't crazy, financial records of loans that were never repaid, and most damning of all, my grandmother's will, which explicitly left the $30,000 to me. By morning, I had compiled a digital record of a family dynamic built on lies, favoritism, and emotional manipulation. I also had the beginnings of a plan. First, I called Sophia and arranged to meet for coffee. As a legal assistant, she had insights I needed. "What they're doing is clearly against the terms of the will," she confirmed after reviewing the document. "Grandma left that money specifically to you, with no conditions or contingencies. They can't legally redirect it without your consent." "I don't care about the money," I told her, "but I do care about the truth. For once, I want them to face the consequences of how they've treated me." Sophia's expression softened. "I've watched this happen for years. Nora, the way Aunt Carla treats you, it's not right. It never has been." For the first time, I felt something I hadn't expected. Validation from a family member. It was like a cool drink after a lifetime of thirst. "What are you thinking of doing?" she asked. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "But I'm done being the family scapegoat." The next day, I called in sick to work and scheduled a consultation with Amanda Whitfield of Whitfield Legal Group. Despite sharing a last name with Chad, she assured me there was no relation. "Trust me, I'd remember having an investment banker in the family," she said with a wry smile. I laid out my situation, showing her the evidence I had compiled and explaining my grandmother's will. "You have several options here," Amanda said after reviewing everything. "We could contest the redirection of the inheritance. That's straightforward enough. But I sense you're looking for something more comprehensive." "I want them to know who I really am," I said. "I want them to understand that their actions have consequences." Amanda nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Have you considered a defamation suit? The things your mother has said about you, particularly in public settings and to extended family, could potentially qualify, especially if they've affected your reputation or caused emotional distress." We discussed legal strategies for over an hour, but in the end, I didn't commit to filing any lawsuits. Not yet. I needed to think carefully about my next steps. This wasn't about revenge, or at least, not just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my narrative and establishing boundaries that should have existed long ago. As January 2024 arrived, the wedding preparations intensified. Through Sophia, I learned that Vanessa and Chad had scheduled an engagement party for February 18th at the Crystal Ballroom in the Belmont Plaza, an expensive venue that I happened to know was partially owned by one of my business associates. An idea began to form. On January 10th, I met with Amanda again, this time with a clear strategy in mind. I didn't want to file a lawsuit, not immediately. Anyway, what I wanted was leverage, protection, and most importantly, a platform. "I want to attend that engagement party," I told her, "and I want to tell my story." "That could be risky," Amanda cautioned. "If you're not invited, showing up could potentially be seen as trespassing or harassment." "I'll be invited," I said with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. "They just don't know it yet." Over the next few weeks, I set my plan in motion. First, I reached out to Thomas Wallace, my boss at Pinnacle Marketing Group, though I had kept my private business ventures separate from my day job. Thomas had been a witness to years of my mother's belittling phone calls and surprise office visits. "I need a favor," I told him, explaining the situation, "and it might require some acting on your part." Thomas leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Nora, in the 5 years you've worked here, you've never asked for anything. You've covered for colleagues, worked holidays, and taken on projects no one else wanted. Whatever you need, consider it done." The next piece fell into place when I contacted Julia Santos, the owner of Tuscany Gardens and my business associate. As a silent investor, I had never attended events at the restaurant or made my ownership stake known. Julia was happy to keep my secret, and equally happy to help with what came next. On January 25th, Thomas called my mother. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Thomas Wallace, Nora's supervisor at Pinnacle Marketing Group. I'm calling because we're sponsoring a table at the Belmont Plaza for the Denver Business Association Gala on February 18th, and we'd like Nora to attend as our representative." My mother, predictably, saw an opportunity. "February 18th? What a coincidence. That's my daughter Vanessa's engagement party at the same venue. Perhaps Nora could combine the events? It would mean so much to have her there, and it would save your company the cost of an extra ticket." Thomas played his part perfectly. "That sounds ideal. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'll have Nora RSVP directly to the engagement party then. Thank you for being so accommodating." Just like that, my invitation was secured, not out of any desire to include me, but out of my mother's instinctive opportunism. She saw a chance to use my company's resources for Vanessa's benefit and couldn't resist. The final piece of my plan involved the venue itself. I arranged a meeting with the events coordinator at the Belmont Plaza, a woman named Rebecca Torres who, as it happened, was a regular customer of Cozy Creations. "Ms. Rodriguez, I had no idea you were connected to the Whitfield Rodriguez wedding. Your products are all over my apartment," she gushed when I arrived for our meeting. "It's a small world," I replied with a smile. "And please, call me Nora." I explained that I wanted to arrange a special surprise for the engagement party, a video presentation celebrating the couple. Rebecca was enthusiastic and, more importantly, didn't question why I was making arrangements, rather than the bride or mother of the bride. As February 18th approached, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For years, I had navigated family gatherings with dread, always bracing for the next cutting remark or backhanded compliment. Now, for the first time, I was walking into a family event with purpose and power. The night before the engagement party, I finalized my presentation and saved it to a USB drive. Then I did something I had never done before. I splurged on myself. I visited the Hamilton Plaza boutique and purchased an emerald green dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The saleswoman recognized me immediately, not as Nora Rodriguez, marketing manager, but as Nora Rodriguez, founder of Cozy Creations and silent investor in several successful local businesses. "It's an honor to have you in our store, Ms. Rodriguez," she said as she wrapped my purchase. "Your business acumen is legendary in certain circles." I smiled, thinking how those certain circles had never intersected with my family's world, until now. The morning of February 18th dawned clear and cold. I spent the day preparing myself mentally and emotionally for what was to come. This wasn't just about exposing my family's treatment of me. It was about stepping fully into my own identity after years of deliberate self-diminishment. I arrived at the Belmont Plaza 30 minutes before the engagement party was scheduled to begin. Rebecca greeted me warmly and showed me to a small preparation room where I could leave my coat and collect myself. "The AV system is all set up as you requested," she assured me. "Just give me the signal when you're ready for the presentation." I thanked her and handed over the USB drive, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. Then I took a moment alone, looking at my reflection in the full-length mirror. The woman who stared back at me was not the Nora Rodriguez my family thought they knew. She stood straight, her eyes clear and determined, her posture that of someone who knew her own worth. At precisely 7 p.m., I entered the crystal ballroom. The space was transformed by elegant floral arrangements and soft lighting, with round tables circling a small dance floor and a dais where Vanessa and Chad stood greeting guests. My mother fluttered nearby, resplendent in an expensive gown, playing the role of proud matriarch to perfection. For a moment, no one noticed me. I used those precious seconds to observe the scene. Extended family members I rarely saw. Chad's colleagues and friends looking uncomfortable in the family-heavy atmosphere. Vanessa's social media followers turned friends clustered near the bar, documenting every detail for their own feeds. Then my mother spotted me. Her expression shifted rapidly from confusion to alarm to a tight, controlled smile as she remembered the supposed reason for my presence. She made her way toward me, moving with the purposeful grace of someone navigating a minefield. "Nora," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I didn't realize you'd be here so early. Your work function starts at 8, doesn't it?" "Hello, Mother," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Actually, there is no work function. Thomas called you because I asked him to." Her smile faltered. "I don't understand." "You will," I promised. "Where's Dad?" She gestured vaguely toward the bar. "Getting drinks with Chad's father? Nora, what's going on? You look different." I smiled. I am different. Or rather, I'm finally allowing myself to be who I've always been. Before she could respond, Vanessa spotted us and made her way over, her expression a mixture of annoyance and confusion. "Nora, what are you doing here?" She looked me up and down, taking in the designer dress and the confident posture. "And what are you wearing?" "Congratulations on your engagement, Vanessa," I said, ignoring her questions. "It's quite a party." Chad appeared at Vanessa's elbow, his arms sliding possessively around her waist. "Nora," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I'm full of surprises," I replied. "Would you excuse me? I need to speak with the event coordinator." I left them standing there, confusion evident on their faces, and made my way to where Rebecca waited near the AV controls. "I'm ready," I told her. She nodded and moved toward the small stage at the front of the ballroom. The soft music that had been playing faded out as Rebecca tapped on a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. We have a special presentation this evening in honor of the engaged couple." The guests turned expectantly toward the stage, many raising phones to capture what they assumed would be a touching tribute. Rebecca beckoned me forward, and I took the microphone from her with steady hands. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice clear and carrying to every corner of the room. "For those who don't know me, I'm Nora Rodriguez, Vanessa's younger sister." A murmur of recognition rippled through the crowd. I saw my father emerge from a cluster of men near the bar, his expression wary. "Family is a complicated thing," I continued. "It shapes us in ways we don't always recognize until we're older. For most of my life, I've allowed my family to define me, to tell me who I was, what I was worth, and what I deserved." My mother was moving toward the stage now, her smile fixed but her eyes panicked. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "Tonight isn't just a celebration of Vanessa and Chad's engagement. It's also an opportunity for truth, something that's been in short supply in our family for as long as I can remember." I nodded to Rebecca, who pressed a button on the laptop connected to the projection system. The large screen behind me illuminated with the first of many text messages I had compiled. "You'll never be as successful or loved as Vanessa if you don't put more effort into yourself. Carla Rodriguez, June 2022. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. My mother froze, her face draining of color. "For years," I continued, "I've been told that I'm not enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, not worthy enough to be a full member of this family. I was even informed via text that I shouldn't embarrass the family by showing up to Vanessa's wedding." The screen changed to display that particular message, my mother's name clearly visible at the top of the text chain. Most recently, My parents decided to redirect a $30,000 inheritance left specifically to me by my grandmother. Their justification? That I wouldn't use it for anything worthwhile, while Vanessa and Chad would use it for family memories, memories I was explicitly told I would not be part of. The screen showed an image of my grandmother's will, with the relevant section highlighted. Then it transitioned to a recording from the dinner at the Fairway Club, captured discreetly on my phone. You've never earned a dime on your own. You're just a charity case we've all had to support emotionally for years. My mother's voice, clear and cutting, filled the ballroom. A heavy silence followed as the recording ended. What my family doesn't know, I said into that silence, is that while they were busy dismissing me, I was building a life and a business of my own. The screen changed again, displaying the Cozy Creations logo, followed by financial statements, business filings, and patent documentation, all with my name clearly visible. Cozy Creations LLC, which I founded 5 years ago, now employs 27 people and generates annual revenue of over $3 million. My patented eco-friendly packaging design is licensed to 11 national retailers, and I am a silent investor in 3 successful Denver restaurants, including Tuscany Gardens, where Chad proposed to Vanessa. Chad's head snapped up, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning comprehension. Around the room, whispers grew as guests processed what they were hearing. I kept my success private not out of shame, but because I learned early on that in my family, accomplishments were either diminished or exploited. The $18,000 I loaned Vanessa for her beauty brand launch, money I was told was an investment in our family's future, not a loan, was just one example. The screen showed the bank transfer to Vanessa, followed by text messages where she had avoided discussing repayment. I'm not sharing this to embarrass anyone, I continued, though the redness creeping up my mother's neck and Vanessa's frozen smile suggested it was too late for that. I'm sharing it because I'm done living a double life. I'm done pretending to be less than I am to make others comfortable, and most importantly, I'm done allowing myself to be treated as if I don't matter. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter with each word. To be clear, I don't need or want Grandma's $30,000. What I want is respect, something that should be freely given in a healthy family, not earned through financial success or social status. The room was utterly silent now, all eyes fixed on me or on the damning evidence displayed on the screen behind me. I've arranged for Grandma's inheritance to be donated in her name to the Denver Women's Business Initiative, an organization that helps women like me build businesses of their own. And I've instructed my attorney to proceed with a defamation suit against anyone who continues to spread falsehoods about me or my character. My mother finally found her voice. Nora, this is ridiculous. You're ruining Vanessa's special night with these exaggerations. They're not exaggerations. Mrs. Rodriguez, a new voice said from near the bar. Thomas Wallace stepped forward, my champion, as promised. I've witnessed your treatment of Nora firsthand over the years. The phone calls to our office belittling her career. The surprise visits where you criticized everything from her desk organization to her lunch choices. Nora is one of the most talented and dedicated professionals I've ever worked with, and she deserves better. Another voice joined in, Julia Santos, who had apparently been invited as a vendor. As the owner of Tuscany Gardens, I can confirm that Ms. Rodriguez is indeed an investor in my restaurant. Her business acumen and support were instrumental in our success. One by one, allies I hadn't expected stood up for me. Rebecca, who knew me as a valued client. The saleswoman from the Hamilton Plaza, who had been invited to showcase her boutique's accessories at the party. Even my cousin Sophia, who confirmed the details of my grandmother's will. My father finally approached the stage, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he might defend my mother, fall back into the familiar pattern of enabling her behavior. Instead, he turned to face the crowd. My daughter is telling the truth, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I have failed her. For years, I watched Carla favor Vanessa, diminish Nora, and I said nothing. I did nothing. He turned to me, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Mija. I had no idea what you've built, but I should have supported you regardless. I should have been a better father. The simple acknowledgement broke something open inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a crack in the wall I had built around my heart where my family was concerned. Vanessa, however, was less moved. She stormed toward the stage, Chad trailing behind her with a stunned expression. "How dare you?" she hissed. "This is my night, not yours. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to steal my moment with these lies." I met her gaze steadily. "Everything I've said is documented, Vanessa. And this isn't about jealousy, it's about dignity and truth. Something you might want to consider as you start your married life." I turned back to the assembled guests. "I didn't come here tonight for revenge or to cause a scene. I came because I'm done hiding who I am and what I've accomplished. I'm done accepting treatment that no one should have to endure from family. And most importantly, I'm done apologizing for taking up space in the world." I handed the microphone back to Rebecca and stepped down from the stage. The room remained silent as I walked toward the exit. Head high, back straight, no one tried to stop me. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. I had done it, spoken my truth, reclaimed my narrative, and finally broken free of the toxic family dynamic that had defined so much of my life. Whatever happened next, I would face it as the real Nora Rodriguez, successful businesswoman, loyal friend, and woman of worth. My phone buzzed with incoming messages, from Sophia, from Thomas, from Julia, all checking if I was okay. I smiled, recognizing what I had built without even realizing it. A chosen family of people who saw me for who I truly was and valued me accordingly. I was about to call a rideshare when the venue doors opened behind me. I turned, half expecting to see my mother or Vanessa ready to continue the confrontation. Instead, it was my father, looking older and more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. "Nora," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, can we talk?" I hesitated, protective of my newfound sense of peace. "I'm not sure there's anything left to say, Dad." "There's everything left to say," he insisted. 33 years worth of things I should have said but didn't. Please, just give me a chance." Something in his expression, genuine remorse, perhaps, or the desperation of a man facing the consequences of decades of passivity, made me nod. "Not tonight," I said. "I need some time. But yes, we can talk." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you, Mija. That's more than I deserve." As he turned to go back inside, I called after him. "Dad, you might want to prepare Mom for a meeting with Amanda Whitfield next week. I meant what I said about the defamation suit." He nodded soberly. "I understand. And for what it's worth, I think you're right to stand up for yourself. It's long overdue." After he disappeared back into the venue, I called a rideshare and headed home. The night had gone exactly as I had planned, yet somehow nothing had turned out quite as I expected. I had anticipated satisfaction, perhaps even a vindictive pleasure in exposing the truth. What I hadn't expected was the profound sense of liberation that came with simply being authentic after years of strategic self-diminishment. In the days that followed, the fallout was both predictable and surprising. Vanessa's social media went conspicuously quiet after several of her followers who had been at the engagement party posted about the dramatic family showdown. Chad's family, embarrassed by the public scene, distanced themselves from the wedding planning. My mother vacillated between rage and desperate attempts to control the narrative, calling extended family members to claim that I had suffered some kind of mental break. Few believed her. It turned out that many people had witnessed her treatment of me over the years and had been uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Now that I had broken the silence, others felt empowered to acknowledge what they had seen. The meeting with Amanda Whitfield proceeded as scheduled. My mother arrived with her own attorney, her expression a mask of wounded dignity. The discussion was tense but productive. In exchange for my agreement not to pursue the defamation suit, my mother would sign a formal acknowledgement that she had attempted to redirect my inheritance against the terms of the will, issue a written apology for her public statements about my character and capabilities, and respect boundaries that I would establish regarding future contact. "This is extortion," she said as she reluctantly signed the agreement. "No, Mrs. Rodriguez," Amanda replied coolly. "This is accountability. There's a significant difference." My father contacted me separately, asking to meet for coffee. When we did, he brought with him a stack of letters my grandmother had written to him over the years, letters in which she had expressed concern about the family dynamic and particular worry for me. "She saw what was happening," he admitted, sliding the letters across the table to me. "She tried to tell me, but I didn't want to see it. It was easier to go along with your mother's view of things than to challenge it and face the conflict that would bring." I skimmed the letters, recognizing my grandmother's handwriting and her direct way of expressing herself. In one from nearly a decade earlier, she had written, "Miguel, your youngest has a fire in her that your wife seems determined to extinguish. If you do not stand up for her, who will?" "Why are you showing me these now?" I asked him. He sighed heavily. "Because I want you to know that someone saw you, even when I failed to, and because I'm trying to understand how I let things get so bad. Your mother and I, we're separating. I moved out last week." The news surprised me less than it might have a month earlier. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it, despite everything. I didn't wish either of my parents ill. "Don't be," he replied. "It's been a long time coming. Your courage at the engagement party made me realize how much of my life I've spent avoiding difficult truths. I don't want to do that anymore." We talked for nearly 3 hours that day, beginning the slow, painful process of excavating decades of family dysfunction and establishing a new, more honest relationship. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Vanessa was less receptive to reconciliation. After a brief, tense phone call in which she accused me of deliberately sabotaging her engagement party out of jealousy, she blocked my number and removed me from all her social media accounts. Through Sophia, I learned that her beauty brand launch had stalled after several investors pulled out, citing concerns about personal instability after videos of her meltdown at the engagement party circulated online. In April, I made a decision that had been brewing for months. I would relocate Cozy Creations' headquarters to Seattle, where we had a growing customer base and where Julia was interested in opening a new restaurant with my backing. The move would give me physical distance from the family drama, while allowing the business to expand in exciting new directions. Before I left Denver, I had one final conversation with my mother. She had requested the meeting, coming to my apartment for the first time in years. Her eyes widened as she took in the tasteful furnishings and original artwork, tangible evidence of the success I had hidden from her for so long. "You've done well for yourself," she said, an odd note in her voice that might have been pride or might have been regret. "Yes," I agreed simply. "I have." We sat at my dining room table, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken recriminations and painful memories. "I want you to reconsider this move to Seattle," she said finally. "It's so far, and with everything that's happened, the family needs to heal. Nora, we can't do that with you on the other side of the country." I studied her face, searching for genuine remorse or understanding. What I saw instead was the same old pattern, an attempt to control the narrative, to make my choices about her needs rather than my own desires. "Mom," I said gently, "I'm not moving to punish you or the family. I'm moving because it's the right decision for my business and for my life. The healing you're talking about, that has to happen regardless of geography. It's about how we treat each other, not how close we live to each other." She frowned, her hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "You've always been so dramatic. Nora, all families have their issues. Ours is no different." And there it was, the fundamental disconnect that had shaped our relationship for decades. In her mind, the systematic favoritism, the emotional manipulation, the casual cruelty were just normal family dynamics that I was too sensitive to accept. "That's where you're wrong," I said. "What happened in our family wasn't normal, and it wasn't okay. I spent years believing there was something wrong with me because I couldn't just accept it. Now I understand that the problem was never me. It was a family system that required me to be less so that others could be more. She stood abruptly, her expression closing like a door. I can see this conversation is pointless. You've made up your mind to abandon your family, just like you made up your mind to humiliate us in public. I remained seated, refusing to be baited into the familiar pattern of defensiveness and guilt. I'm not abandoning anyone, Mom. I'm choosing myself, maybe for the first time ever. That doesn't mean I don't care about you or Dad or even Vanessa. It just means I care about myself, too. She left without another word, the door closing behind her with a quiet click that somehow felt more final than a slam would have. I sat at the table for a long time afterward, feeling a complex mixture of sadness, relief, and something like hope. 2 weeks later, I boarded a plane to Seattle, leaving behind the apartment that had been my home for years and the family dynamics that had shaped me for decades. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward, toward a life built on authenticity rather than accommodation. In the months that followed, I established Cozy Creations' new headquarters in a converted warehouse in Seattle's vibrant Capitol Hill neighborhood. I opened a flagship store on the ground floor, showcasing not only my own products, but also those of other independent artisans I admired. The business continued to thrive, expanding into new markets and product lines. My father and I maintained regular contact through video calls and occasional visits, slowly, cautiously. We were building a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than the dysfunctional patterns of the past. He had filed for divorce, a process that was proving contentious as my mother fought to maintain the lifestyle to which she had become accustomed, a lifestyle that, ironically, had been partially funded by my silent investments in local businesses. As for Vanessa, Sophia kept me updated on the wedding plans, which had been dramatically scaled back after several of Chad's business associates withdrew their support. The Willowbrook estate had canceled their booking, citing a previously unknown policy against events that might damage our reputation for harmonious celebrations. The irony was not lost on me. In July, I attended a business conference in Seattle where I was invited to speak about sustainable packaging innovations. After my presentation, a tall man with kind eyes approached me. "That was fascinating," he said, extending his hand. "I'm James Kavanaugh. I work in tech, but I'm increasingly interested in sustainability initiatives. Would you have time for coffee? I'd love to pick your brain about potential collaborations." 6 months earlier, I might have downplayed my expertise or deflected the attention. Instead, I smiled and met his gaze directly. "I'd like that," I said. "And I'm Nora Rodriguez. It's nice to meet you. James?" As we exchanged contact information, I felt a quiet certainty that something significant was beginning. Not just a potential business collaboration or even a possible romance, but a new chapter in my life where I would never again make myself smaller to accommodate others' expectations or insecurities. The girl who had spent decades hiding her light was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth, who had found her voice, and who would never again apologize for shining brightly in a world that had too often asked her to dim. My name is Nora Rodriguez, and this is my truth.